Let's create a creature in Blender.
In my setting, I basically have a bunch of monsters from pop culture and from old folk tales and mythology. So I like to redesign classically understood animals and monsters. My dwarves are made of stone and they look strange. I have ogres, but they're not necessarily what you expect. I have a grim, but instead of being a dog, it's a plot of land that can walk around on trees. My harpies are bird-like and bat-like. I really like animals, and I like repurposing their parts, especially underused body parts and traits. Because I like animals so much, all the monsters in my setting, I had a lot of fun redesigning, essentially. And that includes the gnoll. So I didn't know this, but the word gnoll is not old. The concept of a gnoll as a monster is not old. Something like a fairy or maybe a werewolf have been around for a long time. Less of a werewolf specifically by name, but the concept of a wolf man has been around for a long time. But the gnoll apparently comes from a book in 1912, a book called The Book of Wonder by somebody named Lord Dunsany Edward Plunkett, or just Lord Dunsany for short. Gnolls, as we understand them in pop culture, first appear in 1977. That's pretty recent. They're in the monster manual for Dungeons & Dragons. But they don't become true hyena beasts until a little bit later. For the first edition, gnolls just have beast heads and clawed feet, but they still mostly look humanoid. Gnolls nowadays we really just consider to be a werewolf, except it's a hyena, but I don't think it transforms from a person. It's just basically a savage, beastly humanoid that is hyena feet. For me, I really like hyenas. I'm kind of sick of them being the enemy in things. They might be my favorite predator in Africa. I just think they're really neat. So I went a completely different direction when I designed my setting. I wanted to make something that sounded like the name. That's what I did with a lot of my demon designs. To be clear, a demon in my setting, Mimic Moon, is a creature that can be made using a ritual. It reproduces using a ritual. It can't make more of itself otherwise. Or it can, but a ritual can also produce more of it. For example, a dragon in my setting can be made using a ritual, but they can also reproduce using good old-fashioned way, laying eggs. But most demons cannot do that. They cannot lay eggs, they cannot reproduce unless they perform a certain ritual. So a gnoll in my setting is a very fundamental demon. It's very basic, very straightforward, easy to make, easy to get, but still kind of dangerous. Like I've said in other videos, blood is power in my setting. So a ritual to create a demon uses blood as a power, and ritual items as reference points. A ritualist, a summoner, it could be a vampire or it could be just a regular schmuck out in the countryside, uses a gnoll as a basic, easy-to-make nuisance. Their snake tails have some venom, their bite is nasty, the bite on their main body, do you see that's the two mouths? One of them on the main turtle-like body and the other one is the snake's mouth. That lower mouth is infested with horrible bacteria and getting bit by it is not a good time. It also does not let go once it does clamp down. But you might be thinking it's bigger than it is. It's very small. The top of its shell doesn't really get any taller than maybe a medium-sized dog. It's really the length that is the dangerous part. You want to keep an eye on the snake's body, the snake tail, because it will stay coiled on top of its own shell, and so you will be surprised when it strikes. But you'll see it coming, you'll also smell it coming. It's very stinky, it smells like rotting flesh. That is why they like to bury themselves in the soil. They'll cover themselves in leaf litter and sticks, which can be horrible. They hibernate like that, but any big disturbance will wake them up, so they're a little bit like a landmine. Luckily, they're not that quick to react after coming out of hibernation, so if a child is running through the forest and steps on one, they could get away if their parents taught them proper common sense. Please just don't mess with it. Run away, it won't be able to keep up with you. So that is a significant downgrade from a gnoll that you might understand from a game like World of Warcraft or Dungeons & Dragons. If you've ever played Baldur's Gate 3, you know that a gnoll can mess your whole day up if you aren't prepared. But a gnoll in my setting is only dangerous if you're not careful. I would call that a downgrade. But some of my monsters, if I ever 3D model a manticore for example, are a lot worse than they are in Dungeons & Dragons and other media. Let me know in the comments what you think of my redesign of a gnoll for my specific setting. There is something called an echidna. You might recognize that name. There's a real-life animal called the echidna, but it's also named after the mother of all monsters from Greek mythology. Typhon, the king of monsters, that's not Godzilla. That's his wife. An echidna in my setting is a large demon from whose mouth emerge smaller gnolls. She's basically a gigantic gnoll with a woman's body instead of a snake head and two serpent tails. Would you like me to 3D model her next? Now, she is fully sapient. A gnoll is not. These things are stupid. Let me give it some bones real quick and bring it to life. Do you think the word gnoll sounds like this creature looks?